Hey everyone, this is Achuta Bava from Nightlight Astrology, and today we're doing a live stream. Really excited to be streaming live today. We're going to do some live eclipse readings and some live Jupiter into Aries readings. So as people are joining us, feel free in the comments section to tell us where you're coming from. I'd love to hear where you guys are streaming in from. And after we do some live readings today, I'm going to be taking some live chart like demos. After that, I have a number of graduated students, recently graduated students from one of my programs who are going to come on and talk about their experience studying astrology and also answer any questions that you have about the courses that I offer. So that is our agenda for today. And as people are streaming in, I'm going to give a little bit of time here with a countdown. So we will see you guys back here in about 30 seconds. Awesome. Well, I'm really glad to be here today. And if you missed the initial intro, we're going to be doing some live chart readings today. And then after that, we're going to be spending some time with some of the alumni from my astrology programs who are going to be talking about their experience in the program and answering any questions that you have about studying astrology, the path of professional astrology, or what it's like to be in my programs in general. As I'm looking through, let's do a little roll call here. I'm seeing people coming in from Puerto Rico, Atlanta, Georgia, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Birmingham, Connecticut, Tempe, from Spain, Istanbul, the Netherlands, New York City, Toronto, Rio, Kansas City, Ontario, Long Beach, Jacksonville, Michigan, Indiana, Pennsylvania. Love it. Love seeing you guys coming in. New Orleans, Maryland. Yeah. Today I'm streaming from my wife's grandmother's house because we had massive storms pour through the Midwest here, at least in Minnesota. And there were tornadoes and straight line winds, and our power has been out at our house for like 2 days. So power is still not on. So we drove over to my wife's grandma's house, and got a little shout out to Jesus there in the background. She's my wife's grandmother is like a very mystical Catholic and super open-minded, and we have really great conversations about astrology, and she's let me look at her chart before. She's a really, really cool woman. Anyway, so I'm here today streaming live, and like I said, I'll be having some of my alumni on in a little bit. We're going to do some live readings first. So what I'm looking for are people, I prefer people who are not in one of my classes where you'll often have your chart looked at, as we're studying something. People who have not also, offered their chart and had me look at it before in a previous YouTube, just to make sure that new people are getting a chance. So with that being said, if anyone would like to volunteer, I'm going to be taking a look at where the eclipses are landing in your birth chart right now, or any of the other major transits like Jupiter entering Aries. And I need your time, date, and location of birth. So we're going to start with that. First one I saw was, let's see here, Melina, thank you so much for volunteering. Let me need to open my astrology software, and let's get it going here. Melina, thank you for volunteering. And here we go. So Melina is April 1st, 1980 at 9:45 a.m. in Boulder, Colorado. And looks like we're going to be going out to Boulder this summer for a minute as my wife is speaking at an herbal conference in Colorado. We're going to stop through Boulder on the way because we've heard that it is a very beautiful place. And so we're going to stop there and check it out. If you guys have recommendations for what to do while we're in Boulder for like 2 days, let us know. Appreciate that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let's see here. And if I can see, it's a little tricky here. All right. I'm on a laptop, so it's just like, it's a little trickier to, okay, let's do it like that. It's not the same as my, here we go. Okay, there we are. So you guys can just give me a thumbs up in the chat box, by the way, if you can see the chart on the screen. Can you all see the chart on the screen? Give me a little heads up or a little thumbs up or a yes, we can see it or whatever. Yeah, okay, good. Great. So this is Melina. Now, what I'm going to start with is taking a look at, just kind of getting a survey of what's going on in your birth chart at the moment. And, from there, taking a look at what's standing out. So we've had eclipses in Scorpio and Taurus, and Jupiter's just entered Aries. So when I look at your chart, Melina, one of the things that stands out to me is you'll notice that if you are looking at Melina's chart and whole signs here, you're going to notice that the sun is in Aries in the 11th house. So this means that between now and October, Jupiter's ingressed into the 11th where you have an exalted sun. It'll come back after a little retrograde period between late October and December. It comes back in December and then moves through that entire sign of Aries between December and, say, May. So either of those periods of time are pretty auspicious because what we're looking at, and this is the way that ancient astrologers looked at things, is your chart is like a field of karma. And the transits are basically activating different elements of that natal karma. And at different times in your life, depending on, how you're learning and growing, that karma changes and evolves, and as we do. What you're looking for is when there's a planet that's in a good house and it's in a strong sign, typically then when that planet is activated by transits, you're going to see more auspicious results or things that are, subjectively more favorable. Now, spiritually, everything is material for growth, the good and the bad. So in a sense, we shouldn't get too attached to either the good or bad seasons of our life, really. But subjectively speaking, it's really nice to have Jupiter activating an exalted sun in the 11th house, which was also a house called the Joy of Jupiter, a place that was associated with allies and friends and benefactors and positive connections and things like that. So Jupiter's ingress into this house, given your sun's placement in that house, an exalted sun in Aries, will probably bring favorable connections, meaning anyone or anything that acts as a powerful resource or benefit to aid or further the pursuit of your ambitions. Usually that means professionally, but it could mean in terms of your life goals, more broadly or generally speaking, that positive or beneficial people or groups or allies or influences will be coming into your life. When Jupiter hits the 11th house, it's a bit like wish fulfillment. Let me give you an example. So I had Jupiter in my 11th house in Pisces. And I had said for like probably 3 or 4 years that one day, 20 years from now, if there's ever a chance, maybe closer to retirement, to buy some land in India with some friends. We have a lot of Indian friends in our community. And I said, if there's ever a chance to do something like that and, maybe build a a place to host some retreats for pilgrimage for Westerners to go and have an experience of yoga in India. That would be like a kind of like a dream. And this actually happened while Jupiter was in the 11th house. My experience of Jupiter transits to the 11th house are generally that they are supportive of your hopes, your wishes, and dreams. They start planting seeds, Jupiter in the 11th does. Jupiter in the 11th starts planting seeds that in time grow into the kinds of things that are reflective of your, kind of your hopes and dreams for yourself. And often it has this kind of professional connotation, but sometimes it's religious. Sometimes it's the kinds of things that you're trying to build in your life in a broader sense. With an exalted sun there, I love this for you, Melina. I think that you're looking at some really supportive energies in the next year. And in particular, because the sun is not going to receive the conjunction from Jupiter until Jupiter's second push, which means December through May, going into next year, you may see some of that really coming to fruition, say in like March. February, March, right in there as Jupiter's really starting to push over the sun again. And it'll actually, because it's going to retrograde before it hits your sun this first pass between now and October. So that's what I would watch for if I were you from this Jupiter transit. And I'm going to keep it, I'm going to kind of pick, do I want to talk about eclipses? Do I want to talk about Jupiter? So I'm just going to stick with Jupiter for your chart. But I will say one of the reasons that I wouldn't necessarily count out the eclipses because they're going to engage your Venus-Uranus dynamic as well. So some really big potential changes in that area as well. The eclipses activating Venus-Uranus can certainly point to shakeups around relationships, sexuality, things like that. So at any rate, Mars retrograde in your first house for a long time this year. That's another really big event. So you've definitely got some big transits that are cooking this year for sure. I'd love to hear from you. If you ever want to reach out, let me know how things go. I'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you, Melina, for volunteering. So I'm going to take another volunteer now. We're going to do 3 total, and then I've got some guests that are going to come on and talk to us about their experience studying astrology. And you can also ask them any questions you want to about my programs. Let's see here. I'm going to go with just looking at who I've got in the box. Let's see. How about Irene? That looks great. Thank you, Irene. I'm going to look at your chart next. So Irene is coming from Athens, Greece. And let me just I'm going to get your chart up first. It's a little bit more complicated being on a laptop. At home, I have double screens, so I don't have to like minimize one screen and change it over to the other and all that stuff. All right. April 9th, 1977 at 6:25 a.m. in Athens, taking it back to the cradle of ancient astrology. All right, let's see. We're just reading it back one more time. April 9th, 1977, 6:25 a.m. in Athens, Greece. So I am now going to put your chart up on the screen. Let's make sure you can. And I'm going to ask you guys again just to confirm when you can see it on the screen for me. Let me know. Can you guys see Irene's chart on the screen? Irene has cheated. How did Irene cheat? The person evangelizing in the chat box has been put on a timeout. We'll let him and Jesus talk it out for a minute. All right. Okay, good. You can see it. Someone said Irene was cheating, but I don't think so. I didn't see any evidence of cheating. Okay, so can you guys see Irene's chart Should have Irene in the top left-hand corner. You good? Okay. Looks like it is. All right. Well, in Irene's chart, if we're again taking a look at where the eclipses are landing, they're landing across the 2nd and 8th house axis. So you've got an eclipse on April 30th and then May 15th into the 16th, and then again October 25th and November 8th. So as the eclipses are falling across that house axis and you have a Mercury-Uranus opposition, first of all, especially with the Aries rising in the Capricorn midheaven, I love this as an inventive and resourceful chart when it comes to money making, business, maybe an entrepreneurial quality. A lot of people with, the Sun and Venus and, exalted Sun in the first house, Capricorn midheaven. A lot of people are, either self-starters or they're seeking to self-actualize, especially through the development of their own skills, resources, abilities, financial self-sufficiency. You're seeing that kind of echoed by Mercury in the 2nd house here, where the intelligence is being applied in terms of the cultivation of one's own resources. With the opposition to Uranus in the 8th, you also get the feeling that there may be some real twists and turns that this person takes, that Irene takes, when it comes to what she does for a living or how she earns money, or how financial matters change throughout her life. But the idea here is to break the mold around money, resources, who and what I remain dependent upon versus how I become more independent. These are themes you can see through that heavy placement in the 1st and 2nd, with the Mercury in the 2nd opposed to Uranus. So the eclipses are activating a lot of that dynamic in the chart right now and the rest of this year. At the same time, Jupiter in Aries entering your 1st house, crossing the ascendant. So much of a Jupiter in the 1st house transit, if it's not about like putting on a ton of weight, for example, which is what you always have to like be careful of Jupiter in your 1st house, like that you don't just pack on pounds or something, because sometimes it gets like Jupiter in the 1st will show up as some kind of extreme self-indulgence. But Jupiter in Aries is like, a lot of it has to do with building confidence. Jupiter in the 1st house in Aries, starting new things, realizing one's potential, that, all the cliches about independence, individuality, self-confidence. I've got this. I can do this. What kinds of skills and abilities do I have, and where can they take me in the world? And Jupiter in the 1st house will provide opportunities to take your potential to another level. Sometimes it'll bring up lessons about ego, vanity, pride, the tendency to think I'm number one, I'm better than everyone, or something like that. And sometimes you have to kind of work through the shadows of your own ego, or even if you're very talented, you have to work through the shadow of your own talent. But I generally like this as a time where there's a lot of shifts around finances, money, and business, maybe with some opportunities to really change the narrative around income and earning power. With Jupiter in Aries offering opportunities for growth, starting new things. Jupiter in Aries in the 1st house, very inceptional, and the potential to build confidence. Your ascendant ruler Mars in Pisces is in the 12th house. So it's this interesting dynamic, because on the one hand, exalted Sun in the 1st, self-confidence is the name of the game. Leadership qualities, very independent, striking, original, very, very provocative solar energy there. But then on the other hand, Mars in the 12th house in Pisces could lack confidence, or could, struggle at times, feeling like you're being overwhelmed, or, victimized by elements in your psyche that you struggle to understand. Like sometimes people with a placement like that will go through periods where they struggle with addiction, or they tend to get into situations in their life where they lose confidence, or they feel like they're being misunderstood or mistreated somehow. It's very important that there be this constant exploration of what is the right relationship, to my own power, to my own strength. How do I find and maintain strength and confidence versus losing it or giving it away, or feeling like I live in relative obscurity? Or, again, if you tend to be the type of person who steamrolls other people, or who's overly confident, then sometimes that Mars in the 12th will mean that, pride comes before a fall, and there's lessons about that over and over. Whatever the case may be, I like Jupiter and Aries in the first house, as it's going to retrograde a little bit back into Pisces in the 12th, kind of going back and forth, as really helping you look at how to maintain a steady, strong presence, how to not lose it by becoming, afraid or insecure or weak or anxious, but also how to not overdo things or trip yourself up with too much pride or something. It's like finding the sweet spot with power and confidence, and seeing that translate also around business and money, I think, in the next year. So those are just a few of the things that come to my mind right away. And Irene, I just want to thank you for offering your chart. It's really nice to just take a minute, and hopefully that gives you some good things to think about. All right, we're going to take one more, and then I have 4 guests that are coming on. So it'll be really fun to have everyone with us. 4 guests plus my personal assistant, Delia, who is the manager of all of the programs. You guys have met Delia before. So she'll be here with us today as well. We're going to have a little Q&A and just talking shop about what it's like to study astrology and the path of learning to become a professional astrologer, stuff like that. So one more here. I'm going to take a look and let's see. Interesting. I'm going to take Stephanie King because she's got the eclipses. She's saying that they're on her midheaven and IC, and that should make for a really kind of entertaining last chart to look at. So Stephanie, I'm going to pull your chart up. Just give me a minute, and thank you for volunteering. I gotta find Stephanie. Oh, where did you go? You were just here, and then I think it was scrolling so quickly that I lost it. So hold on, I'm looking for you. Stephanie, there you are. Okay. All right, so Stephanie is June 13th, got a Gemini in the house. Nothing I say will stick. So, and coming from Erie, Pennsylvania. So I have for you, I've got June 13th, 1982, 10:08 a.m. in Erie, PA. All right, I'm going to put you on the screen now. All right, here we go. All right, let me know when you guys can see Stephanie's chart up on the screen, and I will continue. And if any of my guests can see it right away and want to give me a thumbs up, that would be fine too. They're in the waiting room. You guys can see it? Okay, great. All right, well, Stephanie, thanks for volunteering. First of all, let's just, let's kind of get the lay of the land. One thing I love about your chart is that right now, it's interesting to me that right now you do have the eclipses around houses 10 and 4, but to me, the really fantastic thing is that you also have Uranus coming right over your natal Venus in the 10th house as the eclipses are coming through. And I apologize if it's a little bit blurry, if the chart is a little bit blurry on the screen. But you can see in Stephanie's 10th house, you can see Venus at about 15 degrees of Taurus, the midheaven at about 6 degrees of Taurus. And then, of course, the IC is going to be the exact opposite degree in Scorpio. And she's also got Jupiter in Scorpio at the base of the chart. So when you have eclipses in the angular houses, they tend to be very loud, very vocal. And one of the reasons for this is that in the angular houses, there are these fundamental changes that are happening astronomically. In the first house, planets are rising. In the 7th house, planets are setting. In the 10th house, they're culminating, like the sun at midday. And in the fourth house, they're anti-culminating below the earth in the underworld, and they rest there before they rise again. So in each of those places, when eclipses occur, first of all, those places were called kentrons, like that Greek word that's kind of like a center of power. So planets in those places were also said they were said to be krematistikos in Greek, which meant that they were very active and vocal. Like every planet is like an aura, as part of the oracle of the chart, and some planets speak more loudly than others in the chart. So in Stephanie's chart, probably the most well-dignified planet that is also angular is Venus in the career house. So Venus wants to have a strong voice in the story of Stephanie's life, especially when it comes to the 10th house. In Indian astrology, one of the philosophical associations made with the 10th house is this concept called arta, just kind of like could be the pursuit of mastery, the pursuit of power, the pursuit of success, the pursuit of status or rank or fame or notoriety, or being really good at something. We tend to call it the house of career, but it's broader than that. It's what you seek and how you seek to actualize yourself out in the world, in the social civic arena, and whether you achieve fame or infamy. And relative, of course, it's not like every 10th house is about becoming Oprah or something, but it is about what can I achieve in this lifetime. Venus in Taurus is painting the picture there. So the goddess wants to achieve something. What does she want? And she's very capable of doing it. She's in her own sign. So a very well-placed Venus, a morning star Venus, very assertive, very powerful, feminine goddess energy there. And this would be the energy of art, beauty, fashion, design, anything that is artistic or aesthetic. But also anything that deals with what people like or what people are attracted to. Sometimes you're going to see people in marketing or sales, sometimes people who are literally in the arts, whatever the case may be. Venus is there wanting to, create beauty. I see Stephanie saying, what do you want to do when you grow up? Me, I want to change the world for the better. Yeah. So Venus, also the planet of peace, a planet that's associated with peace and anything that's pleasant or enjoyable. Venus in Taurus is very idealistic in that sense too, where it's like, I want something that's beautiful, secure, comfortable. And that can definitely, like, for example, you'll often see people with Venus in the 10th house in PR or even in human resources, where conflict resolution or making sure that your company is living up to its ideals or its values or whatever the case might be. So very powerful Venus in that house. Now, when you're getting eclipses in that house over and over again, and Uranus is going over Venus, it's a very specific combination. So Uranus on Venus wants to break the mold. Uranus, Promethean, right? So Uranus is like the one who says, look, whatever you've been doing, maybe it's been fine and dandy, but now it's time to do something completely different. You have to change the way you've been doing things or what you've been doing, your style, your approach. Maybe there's some way in which you feel limited or trapped or like you haven't realized your potential or something. Uranus starts pounding on the door too if you don't listen. It's like, listen, I'm not going to take the same old status quo or the same old habits or patterns. Something has to change, and it's got to be fun. It's got to be exciting. It's got to be inspiring. There's got to be light and heat and action. So it's very, in that sense, Uranus is the planet of awakening and liberation. So that can be sexual, romantic, relational with Venus, or it could be something to do with your artistic side or your aesthetic, or something to do with what you're doing in your workplace. Then on top of that, so Uranus is going to go back and forth over your Venus over the course of the next year a couple of times. It's going over it right now. It'll go over it retrograde later in the year, goes back over it in 2023. And for about the next year, at least the rest of this year, you've got multiple more. You've already had one major eclipse sitting very close to Venus as Uranus was going over Venus. You also will have an eclipse in the fall. November 8th. In Taurus, again, a lunar eclipse. So there's a cycle of change, probably around your professional life, the values, dreams, goals, desires, and images that are driving what you're trying to do or become with your professional life. I love all of that for you in terms of it being a very exciting year where something provocative and new is trying to establish itself around your career. And to me, that's the most general promise that I would count on looking at your chart. Now, that, again, that could extend into like relationships. For example, Saturn is working its way through your seventh house in Aquarius right now, at the same time that Uranus is going over Venus. Saturn in the seventh with Uranus over Venus is a time to break the mold in love at the exact same time. It could certainly be the case. The other thing that I would bring in just to close this out is Jupiter's entrance into the ninth house. So Jupiter's just gone into the ninth house in Aries. It's going to be moving toward a trine with your ascendant ruler. Jupiter ninth house years for me have always been, and in my clients' charts, are almost always indicative of times where your interest in religion, spirituality, philosophy, meeting teachers, maybe taking a meaningful spiritual trip. People go to do a yoga teacher training, or they decide to get their Reiki attunement, or anything where your cultivation of your mind, your spirituality, your intellect are growing and expanding. It's the house of astrology. It's the house of divination. So could your interest in your tarot deck be increasing in the next year? Whatever the case might be, there's a lot of potential for growth in that area. Remember, Jupiter is called the guru in Indian astrology as well. So, Jupiter in Aries will plant seeds. You might find 3 or 4 teachers or subjects that you get really passionate about in the next year. What's really cool about it is by May of 2023, when Jupiter pops into your 10th house, the opportunity for some of those seeds to develop and contribute something to your professional life is there. So I like that sequence for you. Well, Stephanie says, that's why I'm taking 3 different astrology-based courses currently. There you go. And you might see that like intensify and develop a lot in the next 2 years with Jupiter going through the 9th and 10th simultaneously. So good luck with all of that. Let us know how things go. Send a story to grabbed at nightlightastrology.com if you've got a good one with that transit. Any of these transits, we really appreciate it. So with that, I would like to now welcome into our conversation for the day my personal assistant, Delia, who is also like the sort of lead staff for all of my courses. And Delia is going to be with us, as well as 4 guests today who are here to talk about what it's like to study astrology. And if you have any questions about the program, they will answer. And I have told them, and be completely honest. They're here to promote the program, but not to be like, fanning out. Like, they're here to be honest about what was tough, what was easy, what they liked, what, anything and everything. So Delia, do you want to come on the mic and say hello? Thanks for being here.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm seeing some greetings in the chat box from some familiar names. Good to see you all. As mentioned by Achuda, I do all the behind the scenes logistics, admin stuff. I also created the visuals that we use in the program, and I help with the study sessions, the breakout study sessions, which we do along with another team member, Michelle, and just general helping out.
Yeah, I like this comment. Kate says, Delia is like a logistical astrology ninja guru. If you guys join my programs, you will get to know Delia really well, because Delia and a few other people lead our breakout study sessions in between our major units. And Delia is not only your go-to person for like all of the course admin, but she's also our lead tutor. And the way that she has of helping you organize notes, flashcards, and ways of thinking about the material is amazing. Virgo rising, a bunch of planets in Gemini. She really is a wizard. So anyway, we're really glad that you're here, Delia, to help us today. I'm going to go ahead and bring everyone else on. Does that sound good? Are you guys ready? All right, let's add in some other people. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Thanks for being patient as we got started today. Really appreciate your, as we were getting rolling here. Wanted to do a few readings. I had content planned for today apart from this Q&A time, but because the power was shut down, I decided there was no way to make content for the day aside from maybe doing some live readings. So we kind of just mashed it up like that. I would love it if each of you would just take a second to introduce yourselves. And Delia has a bunch of really good like questions that we're going to pass around for everybody too, and I'm going to let her sort of facilitate that. But maybe we'll just start. Delia, why don't you just call out each individual, and we'll have them come on and just say hello.
All right. Well, why don't we just have everyone introduce themselves and let us know a little bit about what your background was in astrology prior to taking the course. Let's start with Casanti.
Hi, everybody. I'm Casanti. I'm super excited to be here today. So my background in astrology before I started the Nightlight class was just being really interested in it, but somehow not quite being able to kind of get in. Like I was sort of reading books and I don't know, just trying to like sort of get beyond a kind of superficial understanding of it, and just was continually frustrated by the fact that it seemed like I just had to learn a whole bunch of keywords for things, different placements that didn't really kind of, you know, seem like they added up into anything that made sense as a whole. So yeah, I was kind of looking for something that would give me more of a deep dive and more of a sort of thorough grounding in the whole topic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things I hear the most from people coming in, is that, you know, it's hard to make sense of a sea of really good information that's out there. There's a lot of good information, but synthesizing it, making sense of it, and putting it together coherently can be really hard to do without structure, community, you know, interaction, asking questions, and, you know, guidance. So yeah, was definitely a struggle for me too, and that's one of the reasons that we have definitely created and continue to fine tune the course in the way that we do.
Thank you, Casanti. Also joining us today, we have Carlene.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to see everyone again. My name is Carlene, and I joined the program because I just needed for someone to just put it all together for me. I was going down crazy rabbit holes. I think I had started to understand that I was using the wrong house system. I needed to switch to whole house, and I just started reading charts. I was really, really excited about it. I grew up really loving astrology. Just I I would kind of size people up by their sun sign. I was like always doing that. I mean, I knew nothing, but that's what I did. I always had like a mind for it. And then I don't know, just gradually reading more books and taking webinars and things like that. And you know, once I got to the point where I could read charts, I just felt like I was like, okay, I'm at this point. I would love to become a professional astrologer. And yeah, I looked for someone who had a really good program that would just tie it all in a really neat bow for me. And Achuta, I used to watch your program. I loved how you know, with your monthly readings by your rising sign, like the Aquarius always resonated with me. I felt like your program must have been really solid. I felt like you had a really solid practice, something that I could really build a good foundation on. And yeah, I signed up. The first time you offered the class, I signed up. And or the first time I saw a video where you would offer the class, I signed up. And it's the best decision I've made.
That's
Far.
great to hear. Thank you. That's so great to hear. Yeah, it means so much to me that people, you know, in the program, that people keep reflecting back that one of the best benefits is feeling like you're able to put a lot of things together that otherwise it felt like you weren't able to do. That's what any good program should do. And, you know, and there, I'm not saying my program is certainly not the only one that does that, but to me, that's the biggest praise I could hear, because that's where I see the need. It's like, it's just hard. You can learn a lot studying on your own, but it's really helpful to have someone walk you through the entire system. But to speak of the fact that Hellenistic astrology is such a systematic philosophy, it offers a really comprehensive way of understanding astrology in general.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Carlene. Randy, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everybody. Delia, we got the memo. We're matching. That's great. So I, like probably most people, always was into astrology from the time I was very young. I always knew what my sun sign was. I was always that person in my circle of friends that could tell people about their sun sign. And then it sort of graduated to, I was the friend who could tell people about their moon sign. And oh, now I knew what a rising sign was. And I was kind of self-taught for many years, actually until I took this class. And a few years back, I stumbled upon a used book by Robert Hand. And it was like really the first comprehensive astrology book I ever attempted to read. And it was all so over my head. I thought, I must take a class. Like, I must learn this. So I started poking around on YouTube, found Achuta's channel, and actually through a very synchronistic event, realized that a friend of a friend was taking the class. And for me, that was all the sign I needed to sign up. So prior to the class, I had no professional experience, was really just largely self-taught, had a lot of fears that the class would be too over my head, that everybody would know a lot more than I did coming into it. And all of those fears were unfounded. It was such a beautifully constructed class that really started from the foundation and just built so progressively. And so, yeah, I really had no experience, and now I feel so much more confident and so happy I took the class and so happy to be here today.
Thank you, Randy. Yeah, I'm so glad that people, especially, we have a lot of people when, you know, it's like you hear, oh, it's ancient Hellenistic astrology, and it's all about understanding, a lot of the course is about understanding the why behind things. Because once you do, then you have the knowledge with which to it's like all of the lists that you're given, houses, signs, planets, aspects, you're given lists and you're told what they mean and how to interpret them. When you go back to ancient astrology, what you're understanding is where any of those categories ever came from in the first place and why, which then gives you the power to generate the list. You understand where the lists come from, but you also now have the intuitive ability to add to that list in ways that are completely original to yourself, to your own artistry, to your own intuition. And I think that sounds on the outside to a lot of people like daunting, like, oh, it must be really, really hard to get that. But I think that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on. Delia, myself, Michelle, the rest of our tutoring staff, we all pride ourselves on making that deep philosophical foundation of the craft really easy to understand. So difficult concepts become easy in the course. You can go as far as you want. There's as much bonus material and reading and as you want, but it's surprising how much you can gain just by the classes themselves even. Anyway, I just really appreciate your reflections, Randy. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. And last but not least, we have Tassine.
Hi, everyone. So nice to be here. My background is kind of similar. I was into astrology, and then I was kind of the first thing I stumbled upon was sort of modern astrology. I feel like that's kind of the most popular stuff out there in terms of content. And I was sort of going through all of that. And at first it was really fascinating. I got really hooked on like trying to understand, simple ways of interpreting Mercury or Mars or just simple aspects. But I think quite quickly I did start to develop like a little bit of frustration around, okay, but kind of what you guys have already been speaking about, just what's the deeper meaning to this? Like, how can I stop using buzzwords and kind of do it by myself? Because I did feel like I kept going back to, I've forgotten what the keywords for Mars is, or I don't quite remember all of the list of what Jupiter is, and then what's Jupiter inside Sagittarius, or what's Jupiter in Aquarius. Like I had to memorize a lot, I felt like. But Achita, what you were saying just now, like when you understand the why behind, I don't know, like the signs, for example, are linked to the way the light changes and that kind of thing. Like I had no conception of any of that. And I felt like the course really gave me that foundation. And it was stuff I felt like I was looking for, but I didn't even know I was looking for that kind of thing because I was so new to astrology. So yeah, like my background was kind of just modern astrology mainly, but then I found a tutor's channel and there was so much content around, the way he would do a reading or do the videos about the planets in profiles and stuff like that. And I thought, this is slightly different. This is the kind of thing that I wanted to do or wanted to learn. And the course really gives you that right from the bottom all the way, to the end. So. Very good.
Thank you guys. I'm so happy to hear from all of you, and and to have you guys offering. One of the things we do often when we're done with theory, we have live students or live clients come into the classroom. I'll read the chart for them like it was a client in my everyday practice, and everyone is basically sitting in on and getting to see, okay, how do you apply this? And afterward, then we open it up for reflections and questions. And I always say a reflection is anything that you took away as an insight, an aha moment, a way in which you just grew as an astrologer because of something you saw in that reading. And not just in that section, but when people share insights in other moments in the course too, it's like the insights that each person shares as they go through the course are often so profound, the things that people will be putting together for themselves, that everyone else often says that they benefit the most from hearing what other people are taking away. It's like when you hear people reflect in those post-reading comment sessions, like those are my favorite times because I learned something new about the reading I just gave based on what someone else saw or learned from the experience. And there's so much of that in the course, so that, it's not just a linear transmission of information. As the course goes on, it progressively becomes about everyone's insights and realizations sort of being shared and kind of blessing each other. And I'm recognizing that I'm feeling that way as you guys are all sharing right now. And the same thing from class that we had too.
May I add something to that?
Yes, please.
Because I didn't realize, maybe I missed something, but I didn't realize that when you did the live readings, that we would get the chart and the querents questions before the class. So I opened one of Dahlia's emails and I was like, no way, this is awesome. That was just incredible to have a chance to digest that information, kind of see what you'd come up with, and then watch you do the reading. That's a great opportunity for new budding astrologers. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just to piggyback on that, the platform that we all were able to use to contact one another and process things and ask questions, we created like a breakout room so that prior to those readings, whoever could make it could get together and as a group kind of go through the chart, digest it together, kind of bounce some ideas off one another. And I found that so helpful because then when we got to see the live reading done, it was sort of like an opportunity to kind of check our work, see what we might have missed, see what we might have gotten, and just learn from each other in that way. So the community aspect, the communal learning aspect of this course, for me, I have a lot of 11th house placements, was very, very integral for me.
Yeah, for people who take the time to participate in the forum discussion, we have, you know, tutors that are there to breaking down charts, concepts, holding conversations in that group with other classmates, and also taking the time in class when we open it up to come on the mic and camera like you guys are doing right now and just share thoughts and insights and questions and reflections. You form a community. It can feel a little, at first it can feel like, oh, I'm just going to be this number in a group in some like random online class. But the truth is that there's always a tighter group of, I'd say, like 50 or 60 students in every program who are just really making the most of the forum discussion, the breakout tutoring sessions, emailing me constantly with questions. And it's always those people who engage and create friendships and talk and ask questions and share their thoughts that always, in my opinion, are sort of getting the most out of the program. Some people may not have time for that too, which is fine. But like, I just don't want people to think that this is just one of those overwhelming courses where there's no opportunity for community, because there certainly is.
Yeah, and I want to mention also one thing that I think is very lovely about this program is that the classes are always live and new every cohort. So it's not a pre-recorded program where you just receive tons and tons and tons of hours of recordings once you pay. Now, there are the live classes you can attend if you want, but the live classes are also recorded, and you can complete the course very successfully off of the recording. And as mentioned, we have a student discussion forum where students can share insights, you can ask questions. We have people who are specifically dedicated to answering questions on that student discussion forum. So at this point, actually, let me throw it back to you guys. How did you feel in terms of the support that you received for your learning? If you want to take the question, just raise your hand. To see.
Yeah, I thought it was great. The breakout study sessions that we'd have in between classes are such a really great way to like consolidate everything that you've learned in the sort of lectures that she gives. And it's such a, like, yeah, it really doesn't feel like it's mass classroom, because you have this sort of breakdown, ask your questions, really get into the things that you didn't quite understand or need more clarification on. Those are really, really helpful. They felt much smaller, more intimate than they probably actually were. There's loads of people when you check out the little number of participants, but it doesn't feel like that when you're in those sessions. And also just listening to other students give their ideas as well, because astrology is talking about symbols, and there's so many different types of, there's so many different ways of understanding something. So listening to another student who maybe understands something a little bit better than you, that's also really helpful to, like, support your understanding of something. And then of course there are the tutors who are constantly, adding their input, which is fundamental to the learning. So yeah, it's really great. And of course that, the MeWe online platform, I'm not generally a social media kind of person, but I did sign up to that platform. And again, like, anytime you have a random question pop into your head, like, hang on, like, what does this mean? Or how do you interpret that? You can just put it in there and someone will definitely answer that question. And usually it is a tutor, but also, again, other students as well. And then you can have a discussion around it and really test your understanding. So it's not just the classes, there really is that extra support around it as well, which really cushions your learning.
Well, I'll piggyback you and say that I'm not much of a social media person. I don't like being on camera. It petrifies me. So, but I was very active in my own quiet way. I participated in MeWe, and what I would mostly do is if someone gave it, had a problem or whatever, I would come in and offer support. But I'm more in the background kind of person. But I as much as I could, I took every single class live.
Yeah.
Another part of the support system, like just any questions, anything that we had, any kind of question on, there was always a way to reach out to Delia and Michelle. It just felt like as many students as you had in that class, I didn't feel like I was lost in a sea of people and, like you said, just a number. We definitely were supported. And furthermore, I got a reading by Michelle, and that solidified so much for me because Michelle took the time to tell me, she's like, well, I took a Chuta's course the same that you're doing, and the reading was so professional. She took so much care and was so precise with my chart because I already knew my chart. She was so precise with my chart. And, I told her, I was like, if I'm half the astrologer that you are, I'll be so happy that I took this course. And she's like, well, this is how I learned astrology. So, you'll be great. Her readings are absolutely amazing. And that encouraged me even more to see that this is the example of an example of the type of astrology that we would, the type of astrologers that we could be.
All right, and just to chime back in with the logistics, you received, okay, so we have the live classes. A question came in through the chat box. How many hours a week would you spend studying? It obviously varies with everyone and with time, but I'm curious. So the live classes are about 2.5 hours, more or less, sometimes more, sometimes less. And yeah, so how much time did you spend studying outside of class? Let's hear from, Casanti.
I mean, to be honest, I just sort of spent every waking minute on it, but that was more because it's kind of all that I wanted to do, not because that's how overwhelming it was. So I think I think you would learn so much just by even just watching the lectures and not doing any of the homework. But doing, probably like an hour or two a week on top of the class would be super helpful. But then there's just like so much bonus material, like sort of endless links to various astrology podcast episodes and recommended reading and, sort of Hellenistic source texts. And, you can really just go to town on to whatever extent your life circumstances allow. So I pretty much I have my day job and I sleep and I do astrology at the moment. That's kind of pretty much how things are.
Thanks, Casanti. Randy, how about you? What did you do to absorb the material?
For me, what I found worked best was to come to the live class and then rewatch the class a few days later. And then, so that was maybe, another 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours on top of the live class, and then read whatever sort of assigned readings I could. So maybe tack on another hour and then do any bonus stuff that I felt like. But much like Casanti, I'm kind of always thinking about astrology, and I'm in the middle of several astrology books always. So it's hard to quantify, but I would say I put in probably 4 hours a week on top of class to start. And there were some fluctuations, just personal life. Some weeks I was less able to do that much, some weeks a little bit more. That felt like a good balance for me.
Yeah, one of the nice things about the program is that you can take it as casually or as intensely as you want, depending on what your availability is, what your goals are, etc. So if you want to take the course more casually, more as a hobby, you can 100% do that. All of the recordings and class materials, you get to keep them forever. You get perpetual online access through Thinkific. So if you want to go through it at your own pace and just study off of the live classes, you can do that. But if you live, breathe, dream astrology, and you just can't get enough, there is enough in the program for you to go further and beyond the just what's presented in the live classes themselves. Is that right, Achuda?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a program that you take it where you want to take it. If you're A lot of people come in and they think I'm just taking it because I love astrology, and they end up having a practice afterward. A lot of people come in with that intention from the get-go, and they have a practice afterward. But I'm always amazed at how many people don't think they'll ever practice it professionally, but end up doing so in some capacity after the course, because you just get bit by the bug. But a lot of people take it because they love it. This is what they do in their spare time, and there's this feeling of like wanting to know more about this thing that they love. It is a spiritual calling, you could say. It's spiritually, mentally, emotionally transformative beyond what most people think to study ancient astrology. It is not at all different from studying yoga, from learning any other kind of spiritual practice in your life. That the way that this class is structured, it's designed to give you the spiritual roots and the philosophical roots of the practice, as well as the actual practice, so that astrology can become for you a daily spiritual friend and like ally, but also something that for many people become maybe a professional or part-time professional practice, or something you use for your family members. So it's really and that happens whether people every single reading and every bonus piece of work there is. A lot of that's because it's there for you if you want it or not. There's no like pressure, really. It's kind of like you take it as far as you want to.
Well, there's so much material there. Sometimes I'll just sit, and as I'm working, I work from home. And sometimes as I'm working, I'll just put on one of the lectures and kind of listen to it in the background. But there's so much meat there that you can't possibly absorb all of it the first time around. So it's so good to have it to refer back to, and when we need to go back to the basics and like, wait a minute, what was the, if we have any questions about a particular lesson, let me go back through the Thema Mundi or whatever it is. We can go back and refresh those moments, because we that was a lot of material. And I can see why people would take the class thinking it's going to be a fun astrology class and end up becoming a practicing professional astrologer, because you give them the resources to do that in this class. Absolutely.
I would love to hear, Delia, do we have a question on the list? There's been a few people in the chat who have asked what's so great about ancient astrology compared to modern astrology, or can we make some comparisons, or can people talk a little bit about what it is about ancient astrology that you would recommend? And I want to do so in a way, obviously, that's not, I really don't think the program is about drawing a line in the sand and trashing one thing and elevating another. That's not at all what it's about. But ancient astrology is a unique approach to astrology, and it's not the same as what most people have been exposed to, when they first start studying and again, it's not like a judgment thing, but there are some real differences. So I'd love to hear everyone reflect on how you experience those differences, without putting anything down.
All right. Achuda, sorry, just to mention, Kasanti got dropped from the call, and I think her internet is working back. So if we can get her back in. Okay, thank you. Hi, Kasanti. Tassine, you mentioned that you came from a background of modern astrology. Could you tell us what made you decide to take a Hellenistic course and what your experience was learning Hellenistic?
It's funny because right at the beginning, I stumbled upon Hellenistic, and I thought, nah, I don't think so. And I had this happen a few times. Like, I was doing this modern astrology stuff, and then I knew I could feel that it wasn't quite deep enough, and it wasn't quite giving me exactly what I was looking for. I wasn't quite sure what I was looking for, and then I'd come across like the astrology podcast or something, and I'd find it a little too much, and I'd kind of shy away. But then I think as I was getting deeper into sort of the modern astrology stuff, and bearing in mind all of this was very new to me at the time, I started to get really confused by some of the stuff. So one of the things that I got really confused by was a lot of modern astrologers like to conflate houses and signs as one thing. And I started to get really frustrated with that, because I was like, hang on, this doesn't quite make sense. And how is that not confusing? And all of these things. And then slowly, I guess, Hellenistic astrology started to show, crop up more, and the systematicness, if that's even a word, of the approach of that study then started to feel way more attractive to me. And the fact that, and the more I got into it, the more like methodical it seemed. Like, it's just such a logical way of thinking about things. And I think that's kind of what drew me in. I think the fact that it was very complete way of understanding something, and there were no holes in it. And that was really attractive. And then of course, like, when I was looking at the more philosophical side of things as well, it's such an ancient art. And the Jupiter's channel, for example, was teaching all about, the way ancient thinkers thought about what astrology even is, what it isn't, what the birth chart is and what it isn't. And I feel like modern astrology maybe doesn't really address those questions in that way, which is fine if you're not into that. But at that time, I was seeking that a lot. So that's kind of how I got drawn into Hellenistic.
Would anybody else like to speak to this point? Or if anyone was really used to looking at their charts in quadrant-based house systems, how did you find that transfer to looking at it in whole sign houses too eventually?
I'm happy to speak on that, because I went through that process of switching from modern to Hellenistic. And just initially hearing about Hellenistic astrology, I wasn't really attracted to it. I didn't really want to switch to whole house systems because I don't know, it was some silly reason. Placidus was more popular. I have no idea. But then once I really learned and understood what Hellenistic astrology was, and once I really sat down with it and thought about it, it made all the sense in the world to me. It was what I needed. It's like, modern astrology is your friend who kind of tells you what you want to hear in a loving way, and tells you can change this, like, you'll be okay, everything's going to be fine because you're amazing. And Hellenistic astrology is your friend who tells you the absolute truth. So that's how I felt about it anyway. Not downing either friend. Sometimes you may need both friends depending on what's going on. But I don't know. Once I really understood what it was, and how that project went back and found all of the old texts and translated everything, I was like, I would love to know what the Egyptians and the Babylonians were thinking. Like, what's in those hieroglyphics? Like, that's what I want to learn, and then I can intuit with that as a base. I just thought that it was, I like being told that hard truth. Like, I'm one of those people, like, if you told me, not that astrology would ever do this, not that anyone would ever say this, but if someone could tell me when I was going to die, yeah, let's understand that so I can be prepared for it, Or,
not that we do that.
No one's going to do that, but I'm that person who would want to know those kind of things. Like, let's just get it, just tell me the truth, and then I can build around that. But I felt that Hellenistic it's just very factual. It doesn't really care how you feel. It just is what it is. And I really love that about it. I
want to add to that the name of the course is Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. And so the ultimate goal is to take, I often say that ancient astrology is like karmic analytics, right? It's in it. So in that sense, what Carlene is saying is true in that it sort of lays, it's very brass tacks. It's like, this is where, at this time, this year, there's subjectively positive karma coming through this area of life. There's more challenging karma coming through this area of life. Here's what the natal karma around love and marriages or children and pregnancy or health looks like. And it'll just lay it down in ways that are astoundingly accurate. At the same time, as someone who practiced modern astrology for 5-6 years full time before I studied Hellenistic, I still think there's great value in the psychological approach and the archetypal approach. I'm someone who sees a Jungian therapist weekly, who loves people like Hillman and Jung and Liz Green and Richard Tarnas and all of the best that modern astrology has had to offer. And so by the end of the course, when we meet with people, the question is really, how do we take this karmic, the karmic analytics of the birth chart and help people use it in a way that is meaningful, that's soul-centered. So it's also about chart side manner, like bedside manner for a doctor. It's like, how do you talk to people in a way that is not going to scare anyone, that is going to be encouraging, and that also encourages the use of our free will in intelligent ways. So all of that is still there, but rather than having this kind of morass of super subjective feel-good cliches, you have hyper-focused, super logical, and very intuitive predictive skills that a lot of people, end up feeling like after a while they might feel like they're lacking if you only studied modern astrology. But at the end of the day, I remain an archetypal and psychological astrologer, I think. And I think my readings in class, I think you guys would probably agree, bear that out. A lot of the reading is spent talking about life and talking about emotions and talking about how to meet them with courage and dignity. But we also have this very useful scalpel. It's like it can just go right through the chart, and it's very, very accurate. And for me, that was like the ultimate tool in my kit. It was the one thing I really didn't feel like I had, that modern astrology had given me a lot of very good psychological tools, but it hadn't given me that brass tacks karmic predictive tool.
I just wanted to add something as well, like Carlene, what you said, like when you're learning Hellenistic astrology, like, yeah, the chart doesn't really care about your feelings. It's just it's like, this is the thing. And then the course, when we have the live client readings, they are so helpful in helping you as the astrologer who's got this information in front of you, how to deliver that to someone. So much of astrology is literally the conversation that you're having with the person and how you're going to deliver this very, like, maybe very, difficult aspect that they're having, or something very, not the most pleasant thing. And yeah, the chart doesn't really care. This is what's presented here, but it's the astrologer that has to deliver that. And watching the client readings is really, really helpful, because when you're new to this, it's like, well, how do you tell someone in a reading that they might have issues, in their marriage, or, something that's not very pleasant. So it's not just, the course doesn't give you just like the astrological stuff, the client readings, watching it live, watching the client also, speak back and then, give all that information. It's also really, really insightful to see how that dynamic works, because then you can take that and be like, okay, now when I do my reading, you have some sort of skills like and how to deliver it. That's really helpful.
And sometimes what was interesting is in one reading, there were certain things that you didn't address. And, you know, we were all like looking at these symbols like, well, what about, there was something in the 12th house. I think Mars was in the 6th house and Saturn was in the 12th house. And we're like, what about Mars and Saturn? And you're like, we don't always address everything in every reading. We start very slowly and we build on those relationships. Yeah, the bedside manner was huge. It was huge because another thing that you spoke on was that, you know, people will ask you things like, well, what should I do about it? So now, how would you work with this planet in this house or whatever? And it's good to be able to say, you know, I'm not a therapist. I can recommend someone to you. I'm just here to read the symbols. And, you know, especially a lot of my friends tend to put that on me. And that was actually a lesson for me to not always feel the need to be everyone's therapist. I don't always have to give an answer, you know?
Yeah. We talk a lot about that in class, about what is our role. And everyone has a different style. I like to tell my students in class, you guys have heard me say this a million times, but think of yourself as a good, thoughtful friend at a coffee shop. It's like conversational advice rooted in life. And unless you have, you know, experience counseling or in therapy, don't feel like your job is there to be anything other than a helpful ally with just the knowledge you have. I want to address a question that just came up from Mr. M. Can anyone explain the role of the outer planets in relation to ancient astrology? Seems like ancient astrology is rooted mainly in the inner planets. That's one of the really interesting dimensions of this course. In the first year program, we don't work with the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto at all. So they're pulled out of every chart, every class. They play no role whatsoever. And the reason for that is not because we don't like them. In fact, we bring them back in year 2. And in the year 2 program, they're back like they never left. And we talk about them and how they fit in and everything. But if you want to learn Hellenistic astrology, you will find that many well-known practicing traditional astrologers will tell you it is immensely helpful to go through a period of time where you pull all planetoids, asteroids, you know, hypothetical points, outer planets, you pull it all out and look at the chart in the way that it was looked at by astrologers for, you know, several thousand years, and get to know the language that they had of working with the 7 planets. By strengthening that language and sort of acquiring that nomenclature, when you put them back in, you really get to know and feel the difference between the outers and the inners. And so it's a very meaningful part of how the curriculum is sequenced, that in year 1, it's like, I'm doing an elimination diet of outer planets. Because then when you do that, you get to know the traditional language very, very well. And then when they come back in, you have a very keen feeling for how the 2 are different but complementary. So year 2 is all about bringing them back in after going through that process in year 1. And most people, while they're freaked out by going a year without the outer planets, if you know a little bit about astrology already, when you get into year 2 and you start bringing them back, you're like, that was the best thing ever. Like, and I feel that way too. Like, I couldn't believe I was taking the outer planets out, but when I did, and then I brought them back in, I was like, best thing I've ever done for myself as an astrologer.
Right. We haven't heard from Casanti and Randy in a while, so I'd like to ask the both of you, what were you hoping to get out of the astrology program, the Nightlight Astrology course? And by the end of it, how did the course deliver on those expectations?
I can say something about that. So yeah, I signed up for this class a little bit impetuously, which is sometimes a thing that happens with me. So it wasn't something that was like a really long time in the planning, but it just felt like the right thing to do. And I think my primary goal was, I just want to be able to look at a birth chart and have it make sense to me, be able to navigate it and see how everything plays with everything else, and not have different placements seeming like they're contradicting each other, but they're just these sort of isolated things, and there's no way of knowing how, you know, how to sort of put them all into a kind of coherent whole. And oh my goodness, yeah, I totally feel like I got my wish with this class. It's so satisfying. And, you know, I had to wait. I had to be really patient because there's a lot of theory that comes before you get to that point. And it's sort of like, I need to get to the point where I can read the chart. But it was so great to sort of have the brakes be sort of put on in that way, because it forced my sort of very Geminian hungry brain to just sort of take things in digestible pieces. And, you know, Achuta often talks about how astrology is like a mandala. And I found that to be so true. Like, we'd start off learning about the planets, and then we'd move on to learning about houses and aspects and dignity. And like with every new thing that we learned about, it's like it somehow kind of circled back and illuminated what we'd already learned about planets, until it was just this kind of amazing tapestry of things that all just seemed to make sense in this incredibly beautiful, intelligent way. So yeah, I think I was hoping to learn how to read a birth chart, definitely got that. Didn't even realize I was going to get this sort of massive existential philosophical banquet to chow down on. And you know, that's almost been sort of more amazing to me than what I came in for. So yeah.
I really could not say it any better. I completely agree. I wanted a comprehensive program. I wanted my Saturnine essence wanted something structured and linear and foundational, where part A led to part B, led to part C. And that's exactly what this program was. It was so scaffolded, to use an educational term. The philosophical foundation was just beautiful. Those first few classes that were so rooted in the history and philosophy just absolutely blew my mind. And just how the techniques were just built upon one another. I've started to offer readings for some friends, and I feel like I could learn forever and not know. And at the same time, I'm amazed at how much I know now compared to a year ago. And it's not just memorized. It's deeper than that. It's archetypal, it's symbolic, there's a feeling. And I think that's what this class has offered me. There's such a depth of understanding that sometimes I can now look at a chart and just kind of feel it rather than piece it out so technically, which is just as important as well. So yes, it completely delivered and then some.
I would like to ask if anyone here looked at the course syllabus and thought, oh, planets, houses, signs, you know, like I know that. Were you worried that the course would be too remedial for you? Because we get that question a lot from people who have studied other programs or who have been doing astrology for a while. And, you know, sometimes they ask if they should skip straight to year 2. Did anybody here have that experience?
I did not. I knew that I go down, like I said, I go down these rabbit holes, and I know a piece of this. I knew some of this from here. I learned this from this author, and that was just what I wanted. I wanted a class where we started at the very beginning, and built and then took me to the end. And that is why, like Randy said, I feel so much more confident now. I can look at a birth chart and I know what to do with all the pieces. So it's yeah. And then even if I felt that way going in, the amount of information, and because we got the why, we didn't just get this, you know, this goes with this and that's it. This, you know, this happens and this is, you know, whatever. We get the why of everything. And that just makes you understand the planets and the signs and the aspects. You understand everything in a completely new way. So that helps. So even if you come in thinking that you have a pretty good footing in astrology, you will learn something. You will learn an amazing amount of information that you did not understand.
Thank you so much for that. There's two concerns that people usually have. One is, I've studied planets, houses, signs, and aspects before. It looks like that's a big part of the course. It's like I should probably start with year 2. And it's like, well, unless you've studied, planets, signs, houses, and aspects and dignities and so forth from the perspective of Hellenistic astrology, this will all be brand new. I promise you that. There'll be familiar things like a square, but you'll get to understand where a square came from and why.
Right.
And then you have a tool that is very powerful. But then it's not just that, it's that you can't understand Mars until you understand a square. You can't understand the 6th house until you understand Mars. You can't understand a square until you understand the 6th house. I always tell people ancient astrology is like a psychedelic mandala. And as the course progresses, every stage of the course is deepening your knowledge of something you've previously studied. And you don't get a sense of that until all of a sudden you're doing readings in class and you're starting to see it all come together and you're just like, holy crap. And that's how Hellenistic astrology is. If you don't have that experience of going through it in that way, you're not getting it the way that I want my students to get it. So that's one thing. The second thing is when people take the class and let's say they've even studied some Hellenistic before. I have so many Hellenistic astrologers out there that I love and appreciate in terms of their knowledge and their skill set or whatever. The one thing that I think my program provides that sometimes isn't out there as much, not saying it's not out there at all, but it isn't always out there as much as I would like to see it out there, is the underlying philosophical and spiritual explanation. There are many good Hellenistic astrologers that have historical and factual knowledge about the theory or the craft, but not so much taking the time to explain where this comes from spiritually and philosophically, which is the why that you need for it to be more than just another set of craft tools that you're being told to go and use. Just here's a list, here's a bunch of things and concepts, go use them. This class is very purposeful about breaking down the underlying reason behind everything. And to me, even if you're coming to this course and you're like, well, I already know a bit of Hellenistic astrology because I've read some books and I've taken in a bunch of classes and I'm getting familiar with concepts. Still, the only teacher to me that really spent an amazing amount of time delving into the philosophical roots was Robert Schmidt. He's the guy that had a background in Greek philosophy, translated a huge amount of the original source texts, and inspired the wave of teachers that are now teaching Hellenistic. And for a lot of different reasons, his material is not as accessible. It's very dense. His gift was not in making things very easy, but he was a genius in many ways as well. He passed away. So he's not with us anymore. And I suspect if he was, probably more people would know him now. But it doesn't matter. At any rate, the thing that he really inspired in me, and I spoke at his funeral, and I said this at his funeral. He inspired in me a deeper appreciation for the genius behind the system. But by that, I mean the spiritual currents and state of consciousness that was clearly at play within the astrologers who came up with this stuff. And that's what he did such a brilliant job of. And that's what has inspired the way this course has been shaped, is to give you a sense of the why philosophically and spiritually behind every concept. So even if you've learned a little bit about Hellenistic before, again, unless you've had that, to me, it's not the astrology that I want to give you through my program. So that's why I tell people start with year one. And I'll often tell people, like, look, if you get through year one and your mind isn't blown and you're like, hey, I already knew a bunch of this stuff, you can take year two free. When people have really like given me resistance, I've occasionally said that. And I've never had anyone come back and be like, I knew all of that, so not, so that's what I really focus on in this program for sure.
Yeah.
Also,
Or-
if you
very quickly, sorry, I'm just like Lady Chatterley today.
no, go ahead. Go
Or
ahead.
if you take a year one course and your mind isn't blown at the end of that course, you might be taking the wrong course. You might want to look at this one. Just saying.
Thank you, Carlene. Yeah, I just wanted to add also, if your studies have been primarily with books or videos and you're interested in doing readings, then the practical aspect of the course is also something that is worthwhile, I think, because you're studying with a practicing astrologer who has more than 10 years experience, does readings every single day, and you don't just learn the techniques of how to use the elements of astrology. You don't just learn the underlying philosophical and metaphysical underpinnings. You also learn how to apply all of that to a reading, and you learn some astrological bedside manners, and you learn tips from somebody who has a real astrological business practice. So that's also very valuable.
Well, we are running at an hour and a half right now. And so I'd like to have every person maybe talk a little bit at last about, where are you going next? What is astrology over the past year of taking the first year program? Maybe tell us if you're planning on continuing your education. No pressure. We'd love to have you, but some people go into year two, some people do not. Are you continuing your education? Are you reading for people? Where are you going? What has this done for you? How's your life changed? Just give us some final thoughts that might encourage other people, whether it's in this course or wherever, and whether it's now or sometime in the future, to keep studying astrology.
I'm happy to jump in. So yes, I am planning on taking year two. I'm already registered, super excited. And I have started to offer some readings for some close friends, and kind of gaining some of my footing around that a little bit. And I don't yet know how this all fits in to my future as a whole. I'm a therapist by trade, and I don't know if I could articulate it here, but I've noticed ways in which this course has informed the mental health therapy that I offer. And again, I can't articulate it, but there's been an informing on maybe an archetypal level. So I feel like it's become infused in me, and I'll just wait and see what the future holds.
Great.
For me, I am, I've started doing some donation-based readings. I created a website a month or so ago, which was kind of a fun project. And I'm definitely taking year two, can't wait. So yeah, I don't know whether this is going to turn into I don't know what it's going to turn into, but right now I'm just so jazzed to be able to do readings for people and just, for the most part, come away from each one sort of feeling like, wow, that was, now I'm even more excited about astrology than I was before we went into this. So I still have this class has literally been the highlight of my week for the last year, and I'm someone who can sometimes sort of get really into something and then drop it and get really into something else. But right now, this is just kind of looking like something that's probably going to stick. So I'm excited to see where we go.
Nice.
This class has really changed so much about how I see life, just on a personal level as well. I'm definitely taking year 2 for sure. I'm also, starting to do, donation-based readings. If you want one, it's starandpsyche@gmail. But yeah, no, I was going to say something about what Randy said, actually, when you were talking about how this course is giving you that now when you look at a chart, you can kind of feel it, the essence of it. And I think that that's something that's really intangible that maybe other courses maybe won't be able to provide. And I do think it comes from that philosophical and spiritual why that we study for so long before we even look at charts, really. So yeah, like I do feel like, yeah, it's great. I'm definitely taking year 2.
I'm also taking year 2. I'm already signed up for it. And I started doing readings. I'm just doing readings for like friends. I haven't started any donation-based readings or anything yet. But yeah, I am thinking maybe halfway through year 2, I'll start to do professional readings, maybe if I feel comfortable. Next year in March, Jupiter and Venus will meet in my 3rd house. And I think that might be a good time, and my moon is there. I think that might be a good time to start a business. So I'm not sure as to when that will happen, but I'm looking at that. But yeah, I'm definitely going on. And then if I can, and if I'm able to, I would definitely love to take the horary course. In anything else, if you offer another course, the Passages and Readings course, is that what it's called? Readings and Passages. I may go on to take that one as well. But I just feel like I feel so enriched from that class, and it gave me so much more than I bargained for or I asked for, and it's something you just rarely get these days. It's like you pay for something, and then it's like, well, at least I got 75% of it. But to get so much more than you asked for or than you would have expected is so rare. So I'm gonna keep going. And I'm being completely sincere. I know I'm like I'm not like kissing up to Chuta here. I'm not. I'm being completely sincere. I really, really, really love this course. It did so much for me. Everyone that I know knew that I was taking this course. So yeah, it did a lot for me. And I'm just gonna slowly let things unfold, see how things happen. But to have gotten that first year out of the way and to feel the way that I feel about, doing readings, I feel like I can just relax at this point. And when things happen, they happen. But, we'll see.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much, everyone, for sharing your thoughts today. I do want to give you all an opportunity. If you have a website, some of you do. If you're offering readings, some of you are, and you'd like to put it out there, you've got an audience. And, I wish that my wait list is about a year long, right? And so one of my goals, as people know, in 2023 is to begin hosting a donation-based offering of some kind so that people who've come through my programs and are out there practicing can have their information available so that people can get a reading that might be a little bit more affordable. Maybe you don't have to wait as long. It also serves the goal of helping students get practice that's really valuable that you need in the beginning. So if any of you guys would like to put your info out for others right now, feel free to do so. Anyone want to just pop your hand up if you want to just provide your info, and I can do that too.
I put it in our chat, but I can also read it out. It's
if you
got it.
guys would, sorry to interrupt, if all of you guys would actually write it in the private chat, that way I can copy and paste it as a banner so everyone can see it on the video.
Oh, perfect.
Just do that while Shanti is talking. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So, like I said, I'm offering donation-based readings. It is you can book through my website. I've got a booking page where you can make an appointment, make a donation. Hopefully, it's relatively straightforward. And yeah, I'm just excited. I just want to read more charts and talk to more people. So come get a reading.
Is it openskywitch.windwalking.com? Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And then Tassine also has an email address where you may reach her.
Yes.
Tassine?
Come on, tell us.
My website is still under construction. I'm still kind of trying to figure that out. So if you wanted a reading, again, it's donation based. Just email me at starandpsyche@gmail.com and we can sort of work it out from there. Yeah, come get a reading.
Awesome. Thank you. Let me see. Carlene, I think Carlene got dropped. I don't know. I think the call might have dropped. So you guys saw Carlene earlier, and I am just going to put her info up right now. Carlene has also put out her email address if you guys would like to check in with her and talk about a reading. And then, yes. Okay. And then Randy, did you want to come on?
Sure. I just put in the chat just my email address. I don't have a website yet, but happy to chat, happy to schedule a reading. If you have any more questions, happy to be there for you.
And that, just so that I have it, is that right? rmcardle79@gmail.com?
That's it.
Yeah, there you go. Did I miss anyone?
Well, I just want to say I will continue to be present in each and every one of Achuta's courses, classes, programs, everything, helping out as much as I can, continuing to develop support material along with the team. And hopefully, well, I'll see everyone here on the panel in year 2. And hopefully I'll be seeing some of the people that are in attendance today watching this video very soon in the course.
Carlene, while you dropped off the call, I did share your Gmail address for everyone, so they know they can reach out to you if they'd like a reading. Is there anything you wanted to add?
No, that's just my Gmail address. I'm not doing anything where I'm charging for readings right now, but I'm happy to have a conversation and if it's something where you want a reading, I may even think about doing it for free right now.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get a certain amount of charts under my belt before I start charging. So maybe I'll move to donation based at some point. But yeah, sorry about that. I'm on an iPad, so I'm trying to do multiple things on an iPad.
No worries at all. It's all good. Yeah, all good. Thank you. Thank you everyone so much for being here and just being so enthusiastic and thoughtful about helping me promote the course. And I wish you all the best of success outside of classes and continuing, to get reading experience and stuff like that. We talk at the end of the program, we talk a little bit about the business of astrology. One of the biggest adventures is the decision that you're like, okay, there's the only way that I'm going to learn more about this at a certain point is to read charts. You just get that. You're like, it's not even that I want to become a professional astrologer. It's that in order to learn more about astrology, I've got to read some astrology charts. So for a lot of people, that's like this bridge that they cross. Like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. But all of you are going to do, I know that you'll all do a great job. The people who come through this program, one thing that I'll say is that you're going to find people with their hearts in the right place. That makes all the difference. If you have an interest in astrology and your heart is in the right place, you will be successful. That's been my honest observation over the years. So with that, I'm going to remove you guys from the stream, and Delia and I are just going to cover the last details of the course. So thank you guys for joining us so much, and we'll see you in year 2 shortly.
Bye, everyone.
So Delia, I'm going to take us over to the website. And will you just tell people a little bit about the details of the class so that class starts on June 5th, but tell them all the logistics of what they need to know, and I'll navigate us to the website.
You know, because Virgos hardly love logistics. Okay. So it's a year-long program. Actually, the entire program completes in just under a year. There are 30 lessons in total. The live classes for the June program, which begins on June 5th, will be on Sundays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. They are always recorded. If you can't attend live, you will receive lifetime access to all of the course materials on an online course page where you all receive your own logins. The live classes are about, 2.5 hours long. What else is worth mentioning? There are study sessions in between. There's study materials. There's a class discussion forum.
Everything's recorded if you can't make it live, so you can always watch the recordings. There's tutors in the live forum throughout the year. Delia's there. Delia's not in the forum. She leads the breakout study sessions along with Michelle, who's our lead tutor. You can email me year round with questions. You can tag me in the forum, and I'm there, especially if it's something, it's like a big question that's not an easy one for the tutors to answer. That's typically when I jump in. But yeah, you can ask questions throughout the year. There's 12 guest lectures outside of class. So you get 30 classes on the year. Usually there's about 8 breakout study sessions. That's 38 classes. And then you have about 12 guest lectures that are all optional and put onto the website if you can't make it live for those either. And I'm actually going to see if I can share. I'm going to share the Thinkific page so you can actually see what Thinkific looks like. Thinkific is where we host the, so here you can see on Thinkific kind of what your material looks like. Here's your calendar with all the dates for class on it and the days off on your homepage. You got course information that has like all the course documents, recommended reading, recommended software, both free software that you can use online without paying anything, or like several different programs we recommend purchasing if you want to invest in some astrology software, requirements for certification, like just everything you would need to know in an orientation video and stuff like that. Here's an example lesson. The first lesson is a brief history of Western astrology. You have a little tutorial on how to navigate this Thinkific itself. You have the lesson 1 audio, video, and slides. You've got the Q&A box transcript from class you can read over. You've got flashcards. You've got homework and self-study quiz. You got different readings you can do. And then you have some bonus links to cool material that kind of piggybacks on what we've done in class. So, and every lesson is like this. You've got about as much additional stuff as you want until we get into the readings portion of the program, like the last third of the course, at which point it basically all of the bonus and extra homework and everything else just sort of drops off at that point. And it's so it's front loaded in terms of like all the additional reading and homework you could do. And at the back end, it's really just observing live readings and having discussions. Anything else that we should mention here, Delia?
Yeah, well, since you're showing the page, I just want to point out that this will be populated as the course goes on. We publish the materials week by week. And then there's a question in the chat box about the cohorts. So year 1 has 2 cohorts, one beginning every June, one beginning every November. The June one always meets on Sundays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. The November course always meets on Saturdays, beginning at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Otherwise, it's the same program. So whatever works best for you.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning that you know, if you start and life sidetracks you, you have perpetual access to that, all of the class. So like you can really just do it at your own pace. You have a year within the end of the program to take the certification, optional certification exam if you want to. Some people do and some people don't. So, you know, And then finally, in terms of payment, there's the early bird payment. You save $500 off when you pay in full for the course. There's a 12-month payment plan. You can stretch it out. And then I'd say, you know, maybe at this point, maybe like 50% of our students use need-based tuition. This is not something we offer, you know, just as a discount. It's for people that your budget is such that there is not room for the full cost of the course because you're on a fixed income, you're part-time, you're a single parent, you're receiving disability, maybe you're a full-time student, whatever the case may be. If it's authentically out of your reach and not just like, well, it'd be nice to have a discount, you know, if it's authentically out of your reach, then check out tuition assistance, tell us your situation, write to us. We have a limited amount of those available. And feel free to use that. We try to make sure that people aren't priced out from studying a spiritual topic.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to mention that the course begins on June 5th, but we need to manually open up your access to Thinkific. So it's best if you enroll as soon as possible, really, honestly.
Yeah.
But if you sign up like 20 minutes before the first class begins, we might not have time to enable your access if you want to join the first class live. So please make sure you get your enrollment in at least 24 hours before the first class.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. The sooner you do it, the easier it is on our staff. And the later you do it, the harder it is because we got to get you orientation materials, you know, kind of get you set up. So you can register all the way up to the day before the class and probably we'll be able to get you in. But if you register within 24 hours, it's a little sketchier, you know. So at any rate, Delia, also the course, all of the curriculum is of my design, but you should have seen how third grade, no offense to third graders, but how third grade my PowerPoints looked before Delia came on, who has a background in graphic design. So the presentations in the course, no one mentioned this, but I will. They are beautiful. Like you're going to look at some of the most beautiful presentations, and that's all Delia's handiwork. So she is actually the aesthetic graphic designer of the course. And you'll really appreciate all of the study guides and materials and how nice they look and how accessible they are to read because of Delia's organization and other people on staff who also contribute as well. You guys will get to know Michelle, who is our lead tutor. Maybe we might even come back, have her on at some point before the class starts, but she's also a gem. And so are all of the our account manager, Nanise, who will, you know, work with you if you need to change your credit card on file, if you're paying monthly payments or something. Like everyone that is on staff has gone through the programs. Many of them are practicing astrologers, and it's a little family. The last thing I'll say is that the course, the enrollments, people get a little overwhelmed. You know, they're like, oh, it's a big class. Just remember this: most of the people that take this class participate remotely, which means they follow at their own pace and they watch the videos on their own. The first couple of weeks of the class, a lot of people show up live, but then let's say about halfway through the program, the classes become more and more intimate for people who are showing up every week for the live meetings. And so this tighter knit, more personal experience emerges as the program goes on. And if you're looking for that kind of experience, there's two things that will heighten that for you. One is going to be showing up to the live classes, if you can. A lot of people don't, but like if you can, that's going to heighten that personal feeling of connection. Like all the women who came on today are people that were also very active in class throughout the program, right? The other thing that will enhance the experience for you will be participating even just a few times a week, popping in and contributing to discussion in the forum. The people who do that, there's lots of people in the forums who form little study groups outside of classes, who develop relationships and bonds, who we get to know because we're always talking with in the discussion forums with our tutoring staff and so forth. So, you know, it's definitely like if you're looking for an experience to really build community, it's there. And those are the top two ways that people usually create that. So one thing I wanted to say that I wasn't able to. So thank you everybody for tuning in today. It's been a long one, so we're going to end it here. Thank you, Delia, for all of your help. Thank you to all the women who came on and talked about their experience, for everyone in the chat and all of the wonderful comments that we had throughout who, contributed your own thoughts about the program. Lots of students who were here today saying nice things. And that was really nice to be able to use your comments to help promote the course as well. We really appreciate that. We're going to end it here. Hope to see some of you guys in class soon. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. We'll be back with lots of new content on Monday. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.